Remember, ladies and gentlemen, that the ritual identifies this Yabulon with the word of John chapter 1. John book 1. Even the most cursory reading of John 1, especially verse 14, reveals that the being discussed as Jesus Christ, not this three-headed theological monstrosity, if anything. It is more blasphemous than ever to identify Jesus, whom Freemasonry refuses to worship, with a deity that is two-thirds satanic. Obviously, this Yabulon fellow is not the God of the Bible. And if he, or it, or she, because in their belief, God is male and female, androgynous, he must be a false god, a mask for Satan, a deceit. Who is the great deceiver? Well, we all know the answer to that. As Yabulon is the sacred name of the royal arch degree, Yorkright, so there is a sacred word in the 17th degree, I should say, as well. Remember, this is the Scottish Rite. This name is Abaddon. And a quick trip to the New Testament will reveal that according to God's Word, there's nothing sacred about the name Abaddon. In Revelation chapter 9, verse 11, it says, and I quote, "And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon." End quote. And both of these terms, ladies and gentlemen, literally mean destroyer. And the angel of the bottomless pit is Abaddon, another word for Satan, whom Jesus identifies in John chapter 10, verse 10, as one who comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Some sacred word that is, don't you think? But it is a sacred word in the 17th degree of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry of the Southern jurisdiction. But this is not the only evidence for the identity of Masonry's God. Several ambiguous and not so ambiguous references are made in the writings of some of the Masons quoted throughout their voluminous volumes of writings. Albert Pike, probably the highest Mason in the United States in his day, and the only one regarded as being of the elevation that he was entombed within the house of the temple of the 33rd degree in Washington, D.C. He wrote this, and I quote, this is what he wrote, Albert Pike, one of the greatest Freemasons who ever lived. And they make that statement themselves. He wrote this, quote, "Lucifer, the light bearer, strange and mysterious name to give to the spirit of darkness. Lucifer, the son of the morning. Is it he who bears the light, and with its splendors intolerable, blinds feeble, sensual, or selfish souls? Doubt it not, for traditions are full of divine revelations and inspirations is not of one age nor one creed." End quote. Now, although that statement is an absolute marvel of ambiguity, we must remember that the thing sought in every single Masonic initiation is light. And I have revealed those initiatory ceremonies many times on this broadcast. The question asked of the initiate at the critical moment is what he most desires. Prompted by the deacon, the candidate says, "Light," in the first degree, "more light," in the second degree, and so on. It is not without significance, ladies and gentlemen, that this eminent Mason tells us that Lucifer is the source of that light. Elsewhere, writing of Satan, Albert Pike teaches that he, meaning Satan, is, and I quote, "not a person, but a force created for good, but which may serve for evil. It is the instrument of liberty or free will. They represent this force which presides over the physical generation under the mythologic and horned form of the god Pan. Thence came the he-goat of the Sabbat, which is a witches' festival, brother of the ancient serpent, and the light-bearer, or phosphor, of which the poets have made the false Lucifer of the legend, end quote. What do you think about that? See, Pike is also quoted as giving this instruction to a council of very high-level Freemasons. Listen to this, quote, "The Masonic religion should be, by all of us initiates of the high degree, maintained in the purity of the Luciferian doctrine. If Lucifer were not God, would Adonai, whose deeds prove his cruelty, perfidy, and hatred of man, barbarism, and repulsion for science, would Adonai and his priests calumniate him? Yes, Lucifer is God, and unfortunately Adonai is also God. For the eternal law is that there is no light without shade, no beauty without ugliness, no white without black. For the absolute can only exist as two gods, darkness being necessary for light to serve as its foil, as the pedestal is necessary to the state. Thus the doctrine of Satanism is a heresy, and the true and pure philosophical religion is the belief in Lucifer, the equal of Adonai. But Lucifer, God of light and God of good, is struggling for humanity against Adonai, the God of darkness and evil," end quote. Wow. Now that's a mouthful. And if you didn't understand that, I don't know what else to do. Pike's not alone in beating the drum for Lucifer. The Masonic scholar Manly P. Hall writes this, quote, "When the Mason learns that the key to the warrior on the block is the proper application of the dynamo of living power, he has learned the mystery of his craft. The seething energies of Lucifer are in his hands, and before he may step onward and upward, he must prove his ability to properly apply this energy," end quote. Freemasons are on a quest for light. But it seems they have done everything they can to detour around Jesus, who said, quote, "I am the light of the world," end quote. These quotations may stun the person who thinks of Masons as a nice order of men who help crippled children. They do have hospitals, yes, and burn units, yes. And that is the mask behind which they hide. And that is the foil which they hold up to the community whenever they are threatened with exposure. You see, it's been amply demonstrated from authoritative sources, the ritual monitors of Freemasonry, their own writings, that Freemasonry does not worship the God of the Bible, all of their protestations notwithstanding. And frankly, according to their own writings, their own words, their own ceremonies, their own rituals, that only leaves one other being they can worship, whether they call him the great architect of the universe, or Yabulon, or Lucifer. It is still Satan residing behind the masks of these other names, and they harbor a deep and abiding and terrible hatred of all Christians and of Christianity.